Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so very much for dropping by this video. A warm welcome to anyone who's new to this channel. This channel is about learning to differentiate between authentic, actual Advaita Vedanta, non-duality, and fake, neo, modernized, watered down non-duality. This is very important because Neo-Advaita is actually very dangerous. And sometimes that can be hard to believe because it's just a set of ideas, or it's, just this spiritual path. Sure, maybe it's not perfect, but is it really harmful? Well, actually it is. I know that from personal experience, and here is the experience of someone who recently wrote to me. I have the feeling that I am stuck in this dissociative state because I constantly have the following thoughts in the back of my mind. I often don't even think them consciously. I think they have become automatic thoughts / reality checks. And here are the thoughts. Am I real? Is this world real? Who is having this experience right now? Am I the one speaking, or do all the words just automatically come out of my mouth? Do I feel like I have control over myself? Do I feel normal right now? Is my perception normal? The world used to feel different. It feels like I'm stuck in an endless loop of introspection, and probably that's why everything feels fake, because I don't perceive my outside world properly anymore. I am just watching myself constantly and asking these weird questions, or trying to check if reality feels real. What do you think? Well, first of all, I'm really grateful that that person wrote to me. I can partially relate. I never got caught in the loop of automatic negative thinking, but I did get caught in those kinds of feelings and that dissociative state and those kind of feelings like, is the world real? And so forth and so on. So I asked a couple people I know who are in the process of recovering from Neo-Advaita to share their experience, and they did. And I've posted in dealing with this issue, and I've posted that link here below. It's a Reddit thread that I created. Reddit is an online discussion forum. And all the responses I was really touched by. I wrote a response which I felt was okay, but one person really nailed it. And so I want to read a couple of theirs, things that they said. Like at very first, this meant actually finding slightly divergent voices within the Neo-Advaita scene itself, and listening out for contradictions within the very scene. It was kind of like a trail of crumbs for me that I followed out of the hole little by little. But I personally had to start at the very first tiny crumb, to start small, because at the start I was so brainwashed. I wouldn't have been ready to accept that Neo-Advaita is total bullshit, and wouldn't have believed someone telling me that. This was, of course, my very own personal experience with it, though, that it was a very gradual thing, and that I needed permission from others because I could no longer trust my own authority, and may very well be different for others. I think the fact that there is so much more awareness being raised right now will hopefully mean the process of recovery, healing, and realizing that the Neo-Advaita BS will take less time for people. And then the person also shared some suggestions about what helped them. Humor and comedy, getting back to caring about the things I deeply cared about previously, leaning back into compassion, empathy, sensitivity, love, reading novels, embracing stories again, the joy and beauty of imagination, therapy. And the person, I think this was maybe I was really touched by this closing words of this person. I hope this helps in some ways, but maybe most importantly, they're not alone, meaning the person who wrote the original message. This is so common and for me so relatable. And one of the most helpful things was realizing that this thing I went through actually is a thing. It actually happens to many people. I wish I'd known that earlier. Again, and you can read more of what that person wrote and what some other people wrote. I find a lot of wisdom in those closing words. See, I didn't even realize it was a thing. I was just like, what's the matter with me? What's going on? And of course, if I asked my Neo-Advaita teacher or I asked members of my Neo-Advaita community, they didn't have any helpful feedback. All they'd say is things like, who is the one, the teacher would be like, who is the one who is watching these things? And the Neo-Advaita community would just be like, hey, just keep inquiring. Everything will be okay if you just inquire. The Neo-Advaita community I was a part of was more focused on the practice of self-inquiry than the philosophy, though of course that was there as well. So yeah, to the person who wrote this letter to me and to the people who dropped by this channel, the suffering, so there's like suffering in life, right? That's why we turn to Neo-Advaita thinking it was non-duality. But Neo-Advaita creates more suffering. And part of the suffering is within the Neo-Advaita community, no one really understands that Neo-Advaita is evil and toxic and wrong and delusional, but maybe more importantly, harmful. So this letter from this person is not the first letter I've gotten. And of course, I have my own personal experience. So just recognizing that Neo-Advaita is a thing. You know, in addiction recovery, the number one obstacle to recovery is not recognizing that the addictive behavior is a problem, is denial. It's slightly different in Neo-Advaita. It's not so much denial. It's we think it's like thinking it's actually spiritual or healthy or good, which is just not true. So if you have any feedback you would like to share about how you recovered from this particular issue, you can drop by the Reddit. Hi, for live viewers, feel free to say hello or share any of your thoughts and feelings. So if you have questions or comments about Neo-Advaita in general, I've posted 2 links below this. You may not be able to see it for the live viewers. You may need to refresh when this video is done. One of them is Reddit, which is a discussion forum, and the other is Quora. And you can share your thoughts and feelings there. You can ask questions. And the thing is we're waking up from waking up. There's more and more people are realizing that Neo-Advaita is nothing more and nothing less than an unhealthy religion, and its good days and its bad days straight up a cult that brainwashes people. You know, brainwash is a little bit of I've used that word. Brainwash generally is like where you get control of someone and then they have to like do what you, it's more like it hijacks the mind. And I'm not disagreeing with this person. It is the brainwashing. Part of the brainwashing is this is absolutely true. And I sure was brainwashed. I think what goes on is, see, it's like if you go to enough Neo-Advaita satsangs and you listen enough, then at a certain point, the way the teacher interacts with the students start to interact with themselves. It's like they replay what goes on in the satsang. It's like they start to guru themselves, just like this person. You know, this person's going through their day being like, is this real? Am I doing this? Am I speaking these words? Or are these words just coming out of my mouth? Like that's stuff that they heard, and that's stuff that I heard at the Neo-Advaita satsang. And then at a certain point, I'm not judging this person or judging anyone, but at a certain point, then we start to do that to ourselves. Like it becomes habit. And so the way out, so that's the problem. What's the way out? This person offered some beautiful suggestions. There's 2-3 other people that responded with some good suggestions. For myself, just kind of like this person, I started to, first of all, I had to stop. And it was a gradual process for me as well. And I did. I started to reconnect with the things that did matter to me. In my case, it was dancing and relationships and doing service. Those are three of my three big passions in life that I'd completely abandoned or mostly abandoned. For me, because I was a practicing Hindu for almost 30 years, or maybe not formally, but I was very into Hinduism. So a big part of it for me was getting educated about traditional non-duality. That's a big thing that helped me out of it. Starting to swear. I mean, one day I had a very powerful day when I was like, fuck non-duality and fuck da-da-da and fuck the idea that the world isn't true and fuck trying to be a monk and fuck putting in light. Like I made this list of like 30 Neo-Advaita things. I was just like, fuck that and fuck that. And it was actually really powerful. It was really powerful because, the F word, is like a way of saying absolutely not. And absolutely not, and you're wrong. And so it's not a way, it's not something to use every moment and every day. Like every day and every problem that comes up but it has power. It really has power. And that was a very powerful day. I still remember that. Day. So going to someone who is in Neo-Advaita and talking to them about this, bad idea. Consciously or unconsciously, someone who is involved in Neo-Advaita, whether they're a teacher or a student, they'll do everything they can to rope you back in. So part of it for me was cutting off. I mean, this was a big one, is cutting off all Neo-Advaita from my life, including friendships. They weren't actually friendships. Including YouTube videos, going to satsang. It was really funny. One Neo-Advaita satsang, I used to go to it, but I would put earplugs in. So I didn't have to listen to the Neo-Advaita bullshit, but I could go to the nice temple and have a nice meditation. And, there was some good energy there. But it was also kind of my way of saying, fuck you. I mean, the teacher I don't think anyone knew I was doing it, but inwardly it was like, it was kind of immature in one sense, but it was actually really empowering. So, wow, we've got 5 live viewers on right now. If anyone wants to say hello or share some comments, I feel mostly done. But to anyone who just joined in, there's a discussion going on about how to deal with dissociation and how to deal with reoccurring Neo-Advaita thoughts. And I've posted some links below if you'd like to join in. So yeah, questions or comments? And if not, I'll wrap up. But I'm going to sit for a few minutes and wait, see if anyone wants to share anything. Such a great question. Oh, I love the question. I feel like I could make a whole video on that. Satya asked, is Neo-Advaita like Advaita minus the purification? That's a big part of it, but that's not the only part of it, but it's a very significant part. And so in traditional Neo-Advaita, before self-inquiry, there is quite a bit of purification, or they call it preparatory practices. That's a huge difference. The other, I would say there's two other differences. One of them is just how the teaching is done. Neo-Advaita is repetitive teaching on about like 7 topics. You are consciousness. The world doesn't exist. There is no doer. There is no free will. Nothing matters. You don't exist. There is no person. I maybe there's a couple others, but Neo-Advaita just talks about those things and repeats over and over and over and over. In traditional Advaita, those things aren't focused on in the beginning. And even in the end, they're not focused on that way. They're offered as hypotheses, propositions, and then people are given spiritual practices to determine if they're true. So a big part of it's the energy. And not just the energy, I think maybe the biggest difference is traditional Advaita is generally one-on-one, meaning the teacher gives individual advice and feedback to each person depending on where they are. That's probably, whereas Neo-Advaita is like more like church, where a minister gets up and preaches to the same message to everyone. That's a great question, Satya. Thank you. Any other questions, comments are welcome. Hi, Moo. Moo wrote, love what you say about deciding for yourself as it is true. The difficulty for me is wanting to keep the things that I initially resonated with, but cancel all the shallow mantras. That's funny. Neo-Advaita does teach like a mantra. It just repeats itself over and over and over. Love that, Moo. I mean, one thought that comes to my mind is see if you can find a traditional Advaita teacher and they can help you sort out the good from the garbage. Because that's one of the things that makes Neo-Advaita so tricky. It's not 100% wrong. Like if it was 100% wrong, then we could just be like, we could just throw it out. There's enough truth in it that it makes it sticky. The problem is that Neo-Advaita will also distort these truths. And so a great example is Neo-Advaita will say things like, enlightenment is the elimination of the ego or the elimination of the personality. And it's like, okay, well, Ramana Maharshi said the same thing, ending the ego. The problem is Neo-Advaita has a false definition of ego. Neo-Advaita says ego is the personality. And so that creates this crazy loop of like trying to eliminate the personality, which is not possible. Whereas traditional Advaita says ego is the sense of identification with the personality. So it's very subtle, but the repercussions are huge. So again, in Neo-Advaita, there's this idea of eliminating the personality. And then you'll have Neo-Advaita teachers be like, there is no personality here, when there's totally a personality. Or even worse, there's a personality that's been suppressed. And it comes through in sideways, sneaky, and messy ways. So again, Neo-Advaita, eliminate the ego, and they define ego as personality. It's insane. Traditional Advaita, eliminate the ego, which is the feeling I am the personality. Not eliminate the personality, but learning to not identify with the personality. So Mu, I feel you, because some of the stuff in Neo, like being in the present moment, not being attached to story. I mean, that's a great one. Neo-Advaita would be like, drop the story. Well, the thing is, sometimes you need a story to function in life. So it can get tricky. Neo-Advaita is very tricky. For example, some people are manipulative, and it can be very subtle. In fact, this Neo-Advaita teacher that I've spoken about in my last couple of videos, a very manipulative person, very manipulative. And if I didn't have all my training about Neo-Advaita, but not just Neo-Advaita, but about narcissism and about emotional manipulation, I wouldn't have caught all the games this person was playing. And in fact, a few of them I didn't notice. Someone else pointed out to me later some of the manipulations I didn't catch. So yes, the idea of Neo-Advaita, the idea of manipulation, the idea of narcissism, ultimately they are all stories. They're not facts. They're not facts like if I put this pen on a scale, I can be like, this pen is a third of a pound, or I don't know, metric, like 100 grams. Like that's a fact, right? But things like emotional manipulation, narcissism, everything I'm talking about, it's not exactly a fact, in the sense of being able to weigh this pen. So you could say, oh, it's a story. But the thing is, without this story, I would still be stuck in Neo-Advaita. So the idea that all stories are harmful is patently false and dangerous. And there's a lot of Neo-Advaita teachers who teach that. And because people then drop their capacity to think and discern and even to judge in a certain extent, then they stay stuck. I had to relearn how to get judgmental, which is a funny thing. Yes, judgments can hurt, and not having the capacity to judge can hurt. That's what kept me stuck in Neo-Advaita for so long, is I lost my capacity to discern, to judge, of like, hey, this isn't right. And same thing with anger. Losing my capacity to get angry, I would let people treat me because they're just like, oh, okay, everything is as it should. Everything is as it should be. Well, then I let people mistreat me. And I didn't have the power to say no. Or as I shared earlier, the power to say F you. Again, the F word's not the way to handle every problem, but sometimes that's the way. Anton, ran into a cute girl this weekend. After 2 years of constant dissociation, actually allowed myself to feel something for a very long time and not repressing it. It was magical. Felt like a human again. Anton, yes. I mean, I celebrate with you. Learning how to feel again. Learning how to feel again. And at one of my lowest points in this journey, I went on TikTok, and most of you know what TikTok is, and I just looked at for hours. I looked at videos of attractive women in scantily clad, TikTok, no nudities allowed, scantily clad women dancing and being silly and playful or being sexy. And it pulled me back to life. Because to be alive, you have to feel. Like, I don't know, it's a really deep topic, but I want to celebrate Anton, that like letting yourself, I assume, enjoy her attractiveness. Um, and see, here's where it gets really subtle. The recovery process from Neo-Advaita seems to be the opposite of the spiritual, right? The quote spiritual path, where you like learn detachment and learn to not be interested in worldly things. To recover from Neo-Advaita, you have to do the, I won't say have to, I believe you got, how to say it, learning to have a little attachment and learning to actually want things. You know, this, I concur, the spiritual path is about detachment in the end. But the way Neo-Advaita teaches, and this goes back to your question, Satya, is Neo-Advaita like Advaita minus the purification? This is the difference, is skillfulness. Neo-Advaita will teach you detachment in a way that will hurt you. And so what I just shared about and what Anton just shared about is like, we're having to relearn how to have a little attachment and how to have some desire. Traditional Advaita over time will help you to let go of attachment and to a certain extent let go of being ruled by desire. But to recover from Neo-Advaita, I believe and I posit that you actually have to learn how to feel again, learn how to want things. See, traditional Advaita Vedanta, yes, some people, see, Neo-Advaita is for monks and nuns. They will lie and tell you that what they're teaching, like you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, yeah, you can stay in the world and practice but it teaches such a dissociative state that unless you're like a monk or nun, it'll just put you at war with yourself. And so, so a lot of the things that I'm discovering, and I'm not alone, and if people check out the Reddit thing I posted below, you'll get to hear some other people's experience, which I'm really excited about. And Anton, I hope you go by and post something about your experience there. The path of, and so here's part of the thing is we're all discovering together. Like I'm just sharing what works for me and my knowledge of traditional Advaita, and but it's kind of recovering from Neo-Advaita is kind of like it's a group sport. It's like a sport that we're playing together and simultaneously discovering. There's no clear map, like I'm working on coming up with a rough map. And yes, getting in touch with feelings is part of it. But it's really, the old model of like a guru who gets up and gives you the answers, like isn't going to work to recover from Neo-Advaita. Like it needs, like relationship needs to happen, community needs to happen. And that's why I started that Reddit, is so that people can participate and people can hear other people's voices, not just mine, and share their experiences. This one person who wrote that I started this video with, what she wrote, she like gave a better answer than me on how to deal with dissociation, and that's the beauty of community, is that everyone has something to contribute. Whereas in a Neo-Advaita satsang, it's like just the guru, right? And like obedience to the guru. So that's a little bit of a side topic, but Anton, so grateful. Yeah, I really hope you go and post that. That's huge progress. That's huge progress. All right, beautiful souls. A rich dialogue today. Thank you. Oh, there's more. Yay. Anton wrote, "My dissociation made me a total blank and lost in myself. I lost all interest for girls' relationships and stopped feeling attracted to girls. I was so happy to feel something for a girl again. Woohoo! Attraction! Saved my life. So great to connect. Please stay posted. As I said, I'm going to start having events again where yes, I'll be facilitating the event, but where everyone will get to share their experience and hear each other. So please do subscribe to this channel. The Reddit or the Quora link that I posted. And by the way, while we're here, I have created a website, and it's very much a rough draft, but here you go. It's very much a work in progress, but really delighted by people's input. And again, down the road, we'll have things where it's less me talking and more everyone sharing. That's my goal. That's what I'm moving towards. And some steps in that direction are people can participate, not just in these live chats, but in Quora and Reddit. Thanks so much, beautiful souls. To anyone who just dropped in, oh, yes. Moo wrote, allow for expression and possibility within an ever-changing story and having attachment through learning and love. That's poetic. Neo-Advaita is the absolute repression of expression. It really makes people like robots. This teacher, I haven't interacted with a Neo-Advaita teacher for almost 4 years, and one of them showed up at a group I was in. This person was a robot. And I love what Anton wrote. I got lost in myself. You could see it. This person was completely self-contained in a set of ideas. And worse, he had this dissociative high that appeared to be spiritual. You know, I've done imitations of him. Let's see if I can do another one. If you just come into the present moment, you know, in this such intense gaze, like if you just come into the present moment, you'll see that everything is fine, that peace is here now. Like it's just a dissociative state, but it appears spiritual. Oh my gosh, 7 people. It's hard for me to stop broadcasting when so many people are here. I love what you wrote, Moo. It's very poetic. It's a beautiful expression. Well, I was going to hop off, but 7 people. I'll stick around for a little longer if anyone wants to say anything or share their experience or their questions. I'm just going to grab my drink. And I'll just make an announcement. Sunday the 22nd is going to be the first Neo-Advaita support group that I'm facilitating. You're all invited. You can get updates by going onto my webpage and filling out the submit form or subscribing to Reddit or Quora or this channel. Sunday the 22nd, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Would anyone else like to share anything or ask any questions? All right. Anton wrote, a spiritual teacher. I love that you put it in quotes. I followed earlier that had a constant spiritual high. Wow. Anton wrote, a spiritual teacher I followed earlier had that constant spiritual high. He also had a video explaining how he absolutely failed at life. It is now obvious he simply couldn't live with himself. So he chose total numbness, like a premature suicide. It's sad to see. Beautiful observation, Anton. So I'm going to offer a little confession, which is that would have been me if, see, I have something called complex PTSD, which is very simply normal PTSD. I'm going to connect this to what you said, just little sidetrack. Normal PTSD is like you have a trauma trigger that is connected to something very specific. Like the classic one is a war veteran who has, shell shock, and then they hear a car make a loud sound, and it reminds them of that, and then they have a trauma trigger. Well, complex PTSD is where life itself is like a trigger, and life doesn't feel safe. It's very complicated, but the long and short of it is someone with that, they're constantly having to emotionally regulate. Like all day long, there's on and off, there's emotional explosions happening. And so I tried to live in that constant high. And I was partially successful, and I could do it for periods of time. And yes, I was completely cut off from myself, from my from my actual self, human and to a certain extent spiritual self, but I couldn't maintain it because of the complex PTSD. And I wanted to be a spiritual teacher, and I wanted to teach other people because I thought, oh, this is the answer to life. During the good periods when I wasn't having a trauma trigger and when I wasn't having a freak out, I was like, oh my God, I have found true happiness. And it feels good. Like, and I want to share this with other people, but I couldn't do it because emotionally I was such a mess. If I didn't have that complex PTSD, I would be a Neo-Advaita guru today. I have no doubt about it. And I would be misleading people, and I would be in that same dissociative high that you're talking about, Anton. So suffering saved me, complex, and saved the world from my nonsense. Yeah, beautiful observation. Thank you so much. This has been so rich, and really excited to start to build community. Yep. Anton wrote, it's sad because it's like throwing in the towel. If I'm going to use a metaphor, giving up on life. Neo-Advaita is an absolute giving up on life, 100%. And so again, going back to Satya's question, what is the difference? Neo-Advaita is anti-life. It's very dualistic. Consciousness good, life bad. Neo-Advaita says consciousness is life, that there's actually no separation between the two. It's a very actual non-duality is a very delicate science of leading people to that realization and the integration of consciousness with life. Whereas Neo-Advaita is like cut off everything but consciousness. And because of that cutting off of life, that's why myself and other people are discovering that, and just like Anton discovered, that to learn how to feel again and learn how to live is actually the way out. And it's not the most comfortable. It is very rewarding and rich, but it's not comfortable. It's not easy either. I'm not going to lie to you. Maybe it's easy for some. It hasn't been for me. Really grateful for this conversation. Aw, yeah, yeah. You know, I participated in another a group that was led by someone else, and there were 6 of us, and it was very it's a very tender I've been talking a lot of philosophy, but it's a very tender emotional topic. The loss of ourself, the finding it again, the process of becoming human. It is a very tender subject, and thank you for saying that. Yeah. To anyone who just joined in, we're talking about the process of recovering from Neo-Advaita. And one of the big themes that has come up today is about becoming human again, getting in touch, relearning how to live life. All right, beautiful souls. Getting in touch with soul, dancing, writing or reading poetry, like Anton said, learning how to let yourself feel attraction for someone you feel attracted to. Thank you so much, everybody. I mean, this just makes my day. And wish everyone a beautiful day. Please do drop by and participate in the Quora, or I've turned off comments here because YouTube, it's the comments, it gets very messy very quickly. I won't even, but please do come by to Quora or Reddit and keep your eye out for the upcoming support group I'll be hosting Sunday the 22nd. Anton, Moo, Satya, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you to everyone else who took the time to listen and watch this video. I'm going to close with the words of somebody else. That brings tears to my eyes. This person wrote, maybe the most important thing, and this person was responding to someone else who was struggling. Maybe the most importantly, and that includes you and me, are not alone. This is so common and for me so relatable, all the things we've been talking about. And one of the most helpful things was realizing that this thing I went through actually is a thing. It actually happens to many people. I'd wish I'd known that earlier. A huge namaste to the person who wrote that. Thank you to everyone who dropped by. And look forward to connecting soon, and also connecting in different ways. Take care.